Some rivalries end with a handshake. Others end with one side burning down everything the other ever loved. And in the Middle Ages, rivalries didn't just shape kingdoms, they rewrote history in blood and steel. Today, we're diving into one of the most explosive rivalries of the medieval world, a clash between pride, ambition, and betrayal that spiraled into one of the most brutal massacres ever recorded. This is the story of two men who couldn't share the same sky, and a rivalry that ended in total carnage. Our tale begins in the 12th century, when Europe was basically a patchwork of arrogant nobles and overworked peasants. Enter Richard the Lionheart, King of England, crusader, warrior, and ego the size of his empire. Across the Channel, his rival, Philip II of France, the cunning fox of the Franks, who had one goal: to tear down Richard's glittering legend and make France the center of power again. At first, they were allies, technically. They fought side by side during the Third Crusade, marching through the blazing deserts of the Holy Land. Richard was the charismatic hero in shining armor. Philip was the calculating strategist who knew how to win without getting his boots dirty. But here's the thing about alliances between kings. They last right until one of them gets jealous. And Philip was very jealous. Richard got all the songs, all the fame, all the cool nicknames, while Philip, he was just the other guy. So when Richard started mocking Philip, calling him weak and cowardly, the friendship turned into pure venom. When the crusade ended, Philip went home early, plotting revenge. Meanwhile, Richard lingered in the east, and on his way back, he got captured. Philip couldn't believe his luck. His rival, the Lionheart, was locked up in a foreign dungeon. So what did he do? He wrote to Richard's captor and said, "Keep him there forever." That's medieval friendship for you. But Richard escaped, because of course he did. And when he came back, he found France sharpening its claws. The stage was set. England and France were about to go from passive-aggressive letters to all-out war. Richard, furious and itching for payback, launched a campaign across northern France. His army was disciplined, brutal, and absolutely relentless. Picture it: banners fluttering, ironclad knights thundering across the fields, siege engines rolling through villages like medieval tanks. Philip, ever the schemer, avoided direct battles at first, waiting for Richard to make a mistake. But Richard didn't make mistakes. He crushed castle after castle, humiliating Philip's forces, and even started building an indestructible fortress, Chateau Gaillard, overlooking the Seine River. It was Richard's power move, a giant stone middle finger pointed at the King of France. Philip called it madness. Richard called it architecture. But then came fate's favorite plot twist. In 1199, during a minor siege in France, Richard took a crossbow bolt in the shoulder. Infection set in, and the Lionheart, the man who had never lost a battle, was gone within days. When the news reached Philip, he supposedly smiled. His greatest rival was dead. But he also knew the rivalry wasn't over, because now the fight would pass to the next generation. Richard built castles to defy kings, but not even he could outbuild death. Fast forward to the early 13th century. Richard's brother, King John of England, took the throne, and he was everything Richard wasn't. Where the Lionheart inspired fear and loyalty, John inspired paperwork and resentment. Philip saw his chance. He declared that parts of France still under English control were now his. John protested badly, and the two kingdoms went to war again. This time, it was personal. It wasn't just England versus France, it was Lion versus Fox, Part 2. The decisive clash came in 1214 at the Battle of Bouvines. Philip's forces faced a coalition led by John and the German Emperor Otto IV. It was chaos, knights charging through mud, banners torn by the wind, horses screaming, steel crashing in every direction. Philip himself rode into the fray, his helmet dented, his banner nearly falling. At one point, he was knocked from his horse, and his men thought he was finished. But Philip got up, grabbed another horse, and kept fighting. By the end of the day, John's allies were annihilated. The French trampled their enemies into the dirt, capturing hundreds of nobles. England's power in France was shattered. John fled home humiliated, and within a year his barons would rebel against him, forcing him to sign a little document you might have heard of, the Magna Carta. One man's defeat can become another nation's constitution. The rivalry between England and France didn't die with Richard and Philip. Their feud lit the spark for centuries of war, from the 100 Years' War to countless invasions and betrayals. It turned national pride into a sport. And it all started because two kings couldn't stand sharing the spotlight. Medieval history is full of lessons about loyalty, honor, and glory. But this one, it's a lesson in ego. Because sometimes greatness doesn't fall to enemies or assassins, it falls to pride. They wanted to rule the world and ended up destroying half of it just to prove who was right. So what started as a partnership between Crusader kings became one of the most legendary rivalries in medieval history, a saga of betrayal, revenge, and pride that reshaped Europe. The lion roared, the fox schemed, and the world bled for their ambitions. And centuries later, their legacy still echoes every time two nations go to war over power, pride, or the past. Because in the end, no empire, no matter how mighty, is safe from the rivalry that begins with envy and ends in slaughter.